Marcus Chen sat in the back seat of the black car as it moved slowly through the busy New York streets. The city rushed past his window. People walked fast on the sidewalks. Taxis honked their horns. The usual morning chaos filled the air. He looked down at his phone. The screen showed his company's stock price. It was up again. Marcus smiled a little. His company, Tech Vision, was worth over $8 billion now. But looking at Marcus, no one would ever know this. He wore a simple gray hoodie. His jeans were old and comfortable. His sneakers were clean but worn. A small backpack sat on the seat next to him. This was how Marcus always traveled. Simple, comfortable, real. The car stopped at the airport. Marcus thanked his driver and walked into the terminal. He moved through the crowds easily. He had flown this route many times. New York to Los Angeles. Business as usual. At the gate, Marcus showed his boarding pass. The agent looked at it. She looked at him. Then she looked at the pass again. Her eyebrows went up slightly. "First class, seat 1A, she said, her voice showing surprise. "Yes, ma'am," Marcus said politely. She waved him through. Marcus walked down the jet bridge. He had seen that look before, many times. People always assumed things when they saw him. A young black man in a hoodie. They never thought he belonged in first class. Marcus learned long ago not to care. He knew who he was. He knew what he had built. Other people's assumptions were not his problem. He stepped onto the plane. The first-class cabin was quiet and spacious. Leather seats, extra legroom, soft lighting. Marcus found seat 1A by the window. He put his backpack in the overhead bin and sat down. A flight attendant stood near the front of the cabin. Her name tag read, Diana Patterson. She was a woman in her late 30s with blonde hair pulled back tight. She wore the airline uniform perfectly. Everything about her looked neat and professional. Diana looked at Marcus. Her eyes moved from his hoodie to his sneakers. Her lips pressed together in a thin line. She walked over to him. "Excuse me," Diana said. Her voice was cold. "Are you sure you're in the right section?" Marcus looked up at her calmly. He had heard this before too. "Yes, I'm sure," he said. "Seat 1A. May I see your boarding pass?" Diana asked. She held out her hand. Her tone suggested she expected to prove him wrong. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her his mobile boarding pass. Diana took the phone from his hand. She studied the screen closely. Her eyes narrowed. She checked the seat number, then the name, then the seat number again. "Can you tell me your seat number?" she asked, still holding his phone. 1A, Marcus repeated. His voice stayed calm and even. Diana handed back his phone. She did not apologize. She did not smile. She just turned and walked away. But not before saying loud enough for others to hear. Interesting how some people manage to upgrade these days. Marcus felt the eyes of other passengers on him. A few people looked away quickly. Others kept staring. He took a deep breath and settled into his seat. This was nothing new. He would not let it bother him. More passengers began to board. An elderly white man in an expensive dark suit walked into first class. His shoes were polished. His watch was gold. Everything about him screamed money. Diana's face changed completely. She smiled wide. Her voice became warm and sweet. "Good morning, sir. Welcome aboard. Let me help you with your bag." Diana rushed over to the man. She took his carry-on bag like it was the most important thing in the world. "You're in seat 2A. Right this way. Can I get you some champagne?" The man smiled. "That would be lovely, thank you." "My pleasure, Mr. Rothman," Diana said, reading his name from the passenger list. "We're so happy to have you with us today." Marcus watched this from his seat. The difference was clear. Mr. Rothman got smiles and champagne. Marcus got suspicion and rudeness. Same cabin, same class of service, different treatment. Mr. Rothman settled into his seat behind Marcus. Diana brought him a glass of champagne and crystal. She also brought him a warm towel and a menu. "The salmon is excellent today," Diana told him. "Chef's special preparation." Marcus still had not been offered anything. He waited. He was patient. He had learned patience a long time ago. Finally, Diana walked past his row again. Marcus spoke up politely. "Excuse me, may I have some water, please?" Diana stopped. She did not look happy to be interrupted. "Water?" she said flatly. "Yes, please. Just water." Diana walked away without another word. She came back a minute later. She put a plastic cup of water on Marcus's tray table. Not a glass. A plastic cup. The kind they used in economy class. Mr. Rothman had crystal. Marcus had plastic. A young woman sitting across the aisle noticed. Her name was Sarah Kim. She was 28 years old and worked in tech. She watched Diana's behavior with growing discomfort. This was wrong. She knew it was wrong. Sarah quietly took out her phone. She positioned it carefully. She started recording. Just in case. Just to have proof if she needed it later. More passengers filled the cabin. Diana continued her work. She smiled at the white passengers. She offered them drinks and snacks. She chatted with them warmly. She treated them like valued guests. When she passed Marcus's seat, her face went blank. Cold. Distant. She did not offer him anything. She did not even make eye contact. Marcus opened his laptop. He had work to do. The screen lit up. His company logo appeared. Tech Vision. The name was right there on the laptop cover. Big and clear. Diana walked past again. She did not notice the logo. She was too busy judging Marcus based on his clothes and skin color. She had already decided who he was. She did not care to look deeper. The pilot's voice came over the speaker. "Flight attendants, prepare for departure." Diana made her rounds, checking seatbelts. When she got to Mr. Rothman, she bent down and asked softly, "Is everything comfortable for you, sir?" "Perfect, thank you," Mr. Rothman said. Diana moved to Marcus. She did not bend down. She did not ask if he was comfortable. She just looked at his seatbelt, saw it was fastened, and moved on. Sarah Kim shook her head. This was unbelievable. How could someone be so openly discriminatory? How was this flight attendant getting away with this? The plane began to move. It rolled away from the gate. The engines grew louder. They were heading to the runway. Marcus looked out the window. The airport buildings passed by. He thought about his keynote speech in Los Angeles. He was speaking at the biggest tech conference of the year. Thousands of people would be there. Many of them knew his name. Many of them used his products. But here, on this plane, he was just another black man in a hoodie. Someone who did not belong. Someone to question and doubt. Marcus had grown up in foster care. He moved from home to home. He never had much. No money. No connections. No advantages. He put himself through community college. He worked 3 jobs. He taught himself to code. He built his first app in a tiny apartment with old equipment. Now his company was worth billions. He employed thousands of people. His technology helped millions. But none of that mattered when people looked at him and only saw his clothes and his skin. The plane reached the runway. The engines roared. They accelerated fast. The nose lifted. The wheels left the ground. They were flying. Marcus closed his laptop. He leaned back in his seat. The city got smaller below them. Soon they were above the clouds. Everything looked peaceful from up here. Diana finished her safety checks. She went to the galley at the front. Another flight attendant joined her there. They spoke in low voices. Diana glanced back at Marcus. She said something. The other attendant looked too. They both shook their heads. Sarah Kim saw this. She felt angry. This was so wrong. But what could she do? She was just another passenger. She kept her phone ready. She had a feeling this flight was going to get worse before it got better. Mr. Rothman opened his newspaper. He seemed completely unaware of the tension in the cabin. Or maybe he just did not care. He had received excellent service. That was all that mattered to him. The seatbelt sign turned off. People adjusted in their seats. Some pulled out books, others put on headphones. The flight had officially begun. Diana emerged from the galley with a cart. She pushed it slowly down the aisle. She stopped at each row. She smiled at passengers. She offered them drinks and snacks. Her customer service was perfect. Until she reached Marcus. Her smile disappeared. Her voice went flat. The warmth left her eyes. She stood there with the cart, looking at him like he was a problem she had to deal with. Marcus looked up at her. He waited. He knew what was coming. He had lived this scene too many times, and he was right. What happened next would change everything. For Diana, for Marcus, for everyone watching. The flight had just begun, but the real journey was about to start. The beverage cart stopped at Marcus's row. Diana stood there with her fake smile. It was not a real smile. It was the kind of smile people wear when they have to do something they do not want to do. "Would you like something to drink?" Diana asked. Her voice was flat. No warmth, no friendliness. "Coffee, please," Marcus said. "Black." Diana poured coffee into a paper cup. The same kind they used in economy. She placed it on his tray table without a napkin, without a stirrer, just the cup. Behind Marcus, Mr. Rothman cleared his throat. "I'll have coffee as well, please," he said. Diana's face transformed. The real smile came back. Her voice became sweet like honey. "Of course, Mr. Rothman. Would you like cream and sugar?" Diana poured his coffee into a real ceramic cup. She placed it on a small tray with cream, sugar, a stirrer, and 2 cookies. She set it down gently on his tray table. "You're so kind, thank you," Mr. Rothman said. Sarah Kim watched all of this. Her phone was still recording. The difference in treatment was shocking. Same service, same flight, completely different experiences. Diana continued down the aisle. She served the other passengers. Everyone got ceramic cups. Everyone got napkins and stirrers. Everyone got the proper first-class service. Everyone except Marcus. After an hour, Diana came through again. This time she pushed a cart with meal options. The smell of food filled the cabin. Marcus realized he was hungry. He had left home early that morning. He had not eaten breakfast. Diana stopped at each row. She described the meals with enthusiasm. The grilled salmon with herbs and lemon butter. The beef tenderloin with roasted vegetables. The vegetarian pasta with fresh tomatoes and basil. Everything sounded delicious. She reached Marcus's row. The enthusiasm died. Her voice went cold again. "We have meals available," she said. "But they come with an additional charge. The premium options are quite expensive. We also have a basic sandwich if you prefer something more affordable." Marcus stared at her. What was she talking about? First-class meals were included, everyone knew that. The ticket price covered everything. "I'll have the salmon," Marcus said calmly. His voice showed no anger, no frustration, just calm determination. Diana's lips pressed into a thin line. "That's $45. Marcus looked at her steadily. "I'll pay whatever it costs. The salmon, please." Diana's face showed annoyance. She pulled out the meal and placed it on his tray table. She did not open it for him. She did not provide utensils. She just dropped it there and moved on. Sarah Kim could not believe what she was seeing. She leaned forward in her seat. "Excuse me," Sarah said to Diana. "Why did you charge him for the meal? Aren't first-class meals included?" Diana turned to face Sarah. Her expression was defensive. "I'm just following procedures, ma'am." "But you didn't charge anyone else," Sarah pointed out. "You didn't even mention a charge to Mr. Rothman." Diana's cheeks turned slightly red. "That's different. Mr. Rothman is a frequent flyer. He has status." "How do you know this gentleman doesn't have status?" Sarah asked. She gestured toward Marcus. "Did you check?" Diana's mouth opened and closed. She had no good answer. The truth was obvious. She had made assumptions. Wrong assumptions. "I need to continue serving other passengers," Diana said quickly. She pushed her cart forward, escaping the conversation. Sarah looked at Marcus. "I'm sorry. That was completely wrong." Marcus gave her a small, tired smile. "Thank you for speaking up. Most people don't." "This shouldn't be happening," Sarah said. She was angry now, really angry. Not on my behalf, but on principle. Another passenger was watching too. Patricia Walsh sat 2 rows back. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She had been on many flights in her life. She knew what proper service looked like. This was not it. Patricia pulled out her phone. She started looking up information about passenger rights, about discrimination, about how to report flight attendants. This needed to be documented. This needed to be stopped. Mr. Rothman, meanwhile, ate his meal in peace. He had received his salmon with all the proper accompaniments, a cloth napkin, real silverware, a small salad on the side, a roll with butter. Everything was perfect for him. Diana finished serving the cabin. She returned to the galley. She felt uncomfortable. Sarah's questions had bothered her, but she pushed the feeling away. She told herself she was just doing her job. She was just being careful, making sure everything was in order. But deep down she knew. She knew what she was doing. She knew it was wrong. She just did not want to admit it. 20 minutes later, Mr. Rothman accidentally knocked his wine glass off the tray table. Red wine spilled across his shirt and pants. He jumped up with a gasp. "Oh no!" he exclaimed. Diana heard the commotion and rushed over immediately. Her face showed genuine concern. "Mr. Rothman, I'm so sorry. Let me help you." Diana grabbed a stack of hot towels. She brought club soda. She brought stain remover. She fussed over him like a mother hen. "Please don't worry. We'll get this cleaned up. I'll have this taken care of right away." Thank you, Mr. Rothman said. He dabbed at the stain with the towels. "You're very kind." Diana spent 5 minutes helping him. She brought more towels. She apologized repeatedly. She offered him a complimentary drink to make up for it. She treated the situation like a major emergency. 10 minutes later, Marcus reached for his water. His elbow bumped the cup. Water spilled across his tray table and onto his jeans. Not a lot, but enough to be uncomfortable. Marcus looked around for napkins. He had none. Diana had never given him any. He raised his hand to get her attention. "Excuse me. Could I have some napkins, please? My water spilled." Diana glanced over at him. She saw the spill. She walked to the galley. She came back with exactly 2 paper napkins. She tossed them onto his tray table without a word. Then she walked away. No hot towels, no club soda, no concern. Just 2 thin paper napkins. Sarah Kim's jaw dropped. She could not stay silent anymore. She unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up. She walked over to Diana. "Why are you treating him so differently?" Sarah asked. Her voice was firm but not loud. She did not want to cause a scene, but she needed to say something. Diana turned to face her. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do," Sarah said. "You gave Mr. Rothman hot towels and stain remover. You spent 5 minutes helping him. This gentleman got 2 paper napkins. That's not equal service." Diana's face flushed. "Everyone is treated equally on this flight." "No, they're not," Sarah said. "I've been watching, I've been recording, the difference is obvious." Diana's eyes went wide. "You've been recording?" "Yes," Sarah said. "Because what you're doing is wrong, and someone needs to document it." Other passengers were listening now. The cabin had gone quiet. Everyone could hear the conversation. Patricia Walsh spoke up from her seat. "She's right. I've been watching too. Your behavior has been inappropriate." Diana looked around the cabin. Multiple faces stared back at her. Some looked angry, some looked disappointed, some looked uncomfortable but sympathetic to Marcus. "I'm just doing my job," Diana said weakly. Her confidence was cracking. "Your job is to treat all passengers with respect," Patricia said. "That's not what's happening here." Diana felt the weight of their stares. She felt exposed, caught. Her face burned with embarrassment and anger. But she could not back down now. That would mean admitting she was wrong. That would mean facing what she had done. "I need to speak with the head flight attendant," Diana said. She turned and walked quickly toward the back of the plane. She needed to escape. She needed to get away from all those judging eyes. Sarah returned to her seat. She looked at Marcus. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that." Marcus shook his head. You have nothing to apologize for. Thank you for speaking up. That took courage. Sarah sat down. Her hands were shaking slightly. She had never confronted someone like that before. But it felt right. It felt necessary. In the back galley, Diana found James Rodriguez. He was the head flight attendant. James was a kind man in his 40s. He took his job seriously. He cared about passengers. He cared about his crew. "What's wrong?" James asked. He could see Diana was upset. "Some passengers are complaining about me," Diana said. "They're making accusations. False accusations." "What kind of accusations?" James asked carefully. "They think I'm treating people differently." "It's not true. I treat everyone the same." James frowned. "Which passengers are complaining?" "The woman in 1C and the woman in 3B. They're being ridiculous. They're making something out of nothing." James walked toward the first-class cabin. He needed to see what was happening. He needed to understand the situation. As the head flight attendant, this was his responsibility. He entered the cabin quietly. He looked around. He saw Marcus sitting calmly in seat 1A. He saw Sarah in 1C. He saw Patricia in 3B. He saw the tension in the air. James approached Patricia first. "Excuse me, ma'am. I understand there's been a concern?" Patricia looked up at him. "Yes. Your flight attendant, Diana, has been treating that gentleman very poorly." She gestured toward Marcus. "The discrimination has been obvious and ongoing." James felt his stomach drop. This was serious. Very serious. "Can you give me specific examples?" Patricia did. She listed everything. The plastic cup while others got crystal. The paper napkins while Mr. Rothman got hot towels. The charge for meals that should be included. The differential treatment at every turn. James listened. His face grew more concerned with each detail. This was not just a complaint. This was a pattern. This was discrimination. He walked over to Marcus. "Sir, I'm James Rodriguez, the head flight attendant. I sincerely apologize for any poor service you've received. This is absolutely not acceptable." Marcus looked at James. He saw genuine concern in the man's eyes. "It's all right. These things happen." "No, sir," James said firmly. "These things should not happen. And I will make sure this is addressed properly. Is there anything I can get for you right now?" "I'm fine, thank you," Marcus said. James nodded. He walked back to the galley. He needed to have a serious talk with Diana. He needed to write a report. He needed to contact the airline's management. This could not be ignored. But what James did not know yet was who Marcus really was. What he had built. What he represented. That information was about to change everything. The quiet man in seat 1A was not just another passenger. He was Marcus Chen, founder and CEO of TechVision, billionaire, innovator, icon. And the truth was about to come out. Sarah Kim pulled out her phone again. She had stopped recording, but now she wanted to look something up. Something had been bothering her. The man in seat 1A seemed familiar somehow. She opened her laptop instead. Better screen, better for research. She worked in tech. She knew a lot of people in the industry. Maybe she had seen him at a conference. Sarah leaned forward slightly. She could see Marcus's laptop screen from her angle, not the content, but she could see the logo on the back. TechVision. Her eyes went wide. TechVision. That was a huge company, one of the biggest tech companies in the world. They made software that millions of people used every day. Their products were everywhere. Sarah quickly searched on her phone. TechVision CEO. The results loaded. Her breath caught in her throat. Marcus Chen, age 42, founder and CEO of TechVision. Net worth estimated at $8.3 billion. Self-made billionaire. Started the company from nothing. Rose from foster care to become one of the most successful entrepreneurs in America. Sarah's hands started shaking. She looked at the man in seat 1A. That was Marcus Chen. The Marcus Chen. And Diana had been treating him like dirt. She turned to Patricia Walsh, who sat across from her. "Patricia," she whispered. Patricia looked over. Sarah gestured for her to come closer. Patricia unbuckled and leaned over. "What is it?" Sarah showed her the phone screen. Do you know who that is? She pointed subtly toward Marcus. Patricia looked at the phone, then at Marcus, then back at the phone. Her mouth fell open. Oh my God. That's Marcus Chen? Sarah nodded. The Marcus Chen. Billionaire. Tech genius. And that flight attendant has been treating him like he doesn't belong here. Patricia sat back in her seat. She felt sick to her stomach. This was worse than she thought. Much worse. Diana had not just discriminated against a regular passenger. She had discriminated against one of the most successful men in America. But then Patricia caught herself. No, that was not the point. The point was that no one deserved to be treated that way. Rich or poor, famous or unknown. The discrimination was wrong regardless of who Marcus was. Still, Diana was about to face serious consequences. This story would not stay quiet. People would talk. The media would cover it. The airline would have to respond. Mr. Rothman, sitting behind Marcus, overheard some of the conversation. He was a businessman. He read the financial news every day. He knew the name Marcus Chen. Everyone in business knew that name. Mr. Rothman leaned forward. Excuse me, he said quietly to Marcus. I couldn't help but overhear. Are you Marcus Chen, the founder of Tech Vision? Marcus turned around. He gave a small, polite smile. Yes, I am. Mr. Rothman's face turned red. I'm so sorry for the treatment you received. That was absolutely unacceptable. I had no idea who you were. Not that it matters. No one should be treated that way. Thank you, Marcus said. I appreciate that. Mr. Rothman shook his head. I read about you in the Wall Street Journal just last month. Your story is incredible. What you've built. Where you came from. You're an inspiration. Marcus nodded gratefully. He was used to this kind of recognition, but he never quite knew how to respond to it. He had worked hard. He had been lucky. He had built something meaningful. But at the end of the day, he was just a person. Word began to spread through the cabin. Passengers whispered to each other. They pulled out their phones. They searched for Marcus Chen. They found articles, photos, videos. The evidence was clear. The man in the hoodie was a billionaire. A few passengers felt ashamed. They had watched Diana treat Marcus poorly. They had said nothing. They had been silent witnesses to discrimination. Now they realized they had been watching one of the most successful men in tech get disrespected on a plane. But again, that was not the point. The point was the discrimination itself. The point was that Diana had judged someone based on appearance, based on skin color, based on assumptions, and she had been completely wrong. In the back galley, Diana had no idea what was happening in the cabin. She stood with James, still defending herself. She still believed she had done nothing wrong. She still thought the passengers were overreacting. Diana, I need you to listen carefully, James said. His voice was serious. Several passengers have complained about differential treatment. This is a very serious issue. I need you to stay in the galley for now. I'll handle first-class service for the rest of the flight. Diana's face went pale. You're removing me from first class? Yes, James said. This situation needs to be de-escalated, and I need to file a report with management. Diana felt panic rising in her chest. A report? What kind of report? An incident report about discrimination, James said. His voice was not angry, just sad and disappointed. Diana, I've worked with you for years. I thought I knew you. But what happened today was wrong. You know it was wrong. Diana's eyes filled with tears, but not tears of remorse, tears of anger and humiliation. She felt attacked. She felt misunderstood. She could not see her own actions clearly. I was just doing my job, she said again. Her voice cracked. James shook his head. No, you were not. Your job is to serve all passengers equally. You didn't do that. Now please stay here. I'll handle the cabin. James walked back to first class. He immediately noticed the change in atmosphere. Passengers were whispering, looking at phones, glancing at Marcus. James approached Marcus. He bent down to speak quietly. "Sir, I want to apologize again for what happened. We take these situations very seriously. I've reassigned Diana to different duties for the remainder of the flight. I'll personally ensure you receive excellent service." Marcus looked at James. He could see the man was genuinely upset about the situation. "Thank you, James. I appreciate your response." James straightened up. He cleared his throat. "Attention, first-class passengers. I apologize for any discomfort anyone has experienced during this flight. Please know that our airline has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. Every passenger deserves respect and excellent service regardless of any circumstances. If anyone has further concerns, please don't hesitate to speak with me directly." The cabin was silent. Then a few passengers nodded. Some looked relieved that the situation was being addressed. Others still looked uncomfortable. James began providing service. He brought Marcus a proper coffee in a ceramic cup. He brought him fresh towels. He asked if there was anything else he needed. He treated Marcus exactly how he should have been treated from the beginning. Sarah Kim watched this. She felt satisfied that justice was being done. But she also felt sad. Sad that it took multiple passengers speaking up. Sad that this kind of thing still happened. Sad that people were still judged by their appearance. She pulled out her phone and started typing a message to her company's diversity team. They needed to know about this. They needed to understand that bias was still alive and well. Even in first class. Even in 2024. Patricia Walsh did the same. She emailed the airline's customer service department. She provided details, times, specific incidents. She wanted a paper trail. She wanted to make sure this did not get swept under the rug. In the back galley, Diana sat on a small fold-down seat. She stared at the wall. Her mind raced. How had this happened? How had a routine flight turned into this nightmare? She pulled out her own phone. She saw notifications. Lots of them. She opened social media. Her heart stopped. Someone had already posted about the incident. A passenger from the economy section who had heard the story from someone in first class. The post was spreading. Fast. Flight attendant on New York to LA flight discriminates against black passenger in first class. Multiple witnesses. Video evidence. Turns out the passenger is Marcus Chen, Billionaire CEO of Tech Vision. The post had hundreds of shares already. Comments poured in. People were angry. They were calling for the flight attendant to be fired. They were tagging the airline. They were demanding action. Diana felt her world collapsing. This was going viral. This was becoming national news. Her name would be out there, her face, her actions, everything. She tried to tell herself it was not fair. She tried to tell herself people were overreacting. But deep down, a small voice whispered the truth. She had done this. She had created this situation. She had let her biases control her actions. Another flight attendant walked into the galley. Michelle Torres was younger than Diana. She was kind and professional. She looked at Diana with sympathy. "Diana, are you okay?" Diana looked up. No, I'm not okay. This is all wrong. They're making me out to be some kind of monster." Michelle sat down next to her. "What happened?" Diana told her side of the story. But even as she spoke, she could hear how weak it sounded. How her justifications did not hold up. How her actions spoke louder than her intentions. Michelle listened. Then she spoke gently. "Diana, I think you need to really think about what you did. Not what you meant to do. What you actually did. Because from what you're telling me, you treated that passenger differently. And that's not okay." Diana wanted to argue. But she could not find the words because Michelle was right. She knew Michelle was right. In first class, Marcus worked on his laptop. He had a presentation to prepare, a keynote speech to give. He had stayed calm through all of this. But inside, he felt tired. Tired of having to prove himself. Tired of being doubted. Tired of being judged. He thought about all the times this had happened. Not just on planes. Everywhere. In stores where security followed him. In restaurants where service was slow. In boardrooms where people underestimated him. In meetings where his ideas were dismissed until a white colleague repeated them. His success had not protected him from this. His wealth had not shielded him. His accomplishments had not earned him immunity. He was still a black man in America, and that meant dealing with assumptions and prejudice. But Marcus had learned to channel these experiences into something positive. He spoke about them publicly. He mentored young people of color. He used his platform to advocate for change. He turned pain into purpose. Sarah approached him again. "Excuse me, Mr. Chen, I just wanted to say that I'm a huge admirer of your work. Your company has changed how we think about technology, and your story is inspiring." Marcus smiled. "Thank you." "What do you do?" "I'm a product manager at a startup. We actually use some of TechVision's platforms. They're incredible." They talked for a few minutes about tech, about innovation, about the challenges of building products people love. It was a normal conversation, the kind Marcus enjoyed. No drama, no discrimination, just two people who love technology. The pilot's voice came over the speaker. "We're beginning our descent into Los Angeles. Flight attendants, prepare the cabin for landing." The flight was almost over, but the story was just beginning. News vans were already at the airport. Reporters had heard about the incident. They were waiting, ready to capture the moment when Marcus Chen walked off the plane. Diana still sat in the back galley. She had no idea what was waiting for her. She had no idea how big this had become. She just sat there, scared and confused, trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. The plane descended through the clouds. Los Angeles appeared below. The city of angels. The city of dreams. But for Diana, it was about to become the city of consequences. Her actions had caught up with her. The truth was out, and nothing would ever be the same. The plane touched down smoothly on the runway. The wheels made contact with the ground. The engines reversed. The plane slowed down. Los Angeles International Airport welcomed them. Passengers began gathering their belongings, opening overhead bins, checking phones, getting ready to deplane. The flight was over. But for Diana, the nightmare was just beginning. James Rodriguez approached her in the galley. His face was serious. "Diana, when we get to the gate, you'll need to come with me to the airline office. Management wants to speak with you immediately." Diana's hands trembled. "What will happen?" "I don't know," James said honestly. "But this is serious. Very serious. They've already been contacted by multiple passengers, and the story is all over social media." Diana felt sick. She looked out at the terminal through the small window. She could see people waiting at the gate. Some of them held phones up, clearly recording. News cameras were visible too. "Oh God," Diana whispered. "They're here for this. They're here for me." "Actually," James said, "they're here for Marcus Chen. He's a very well-known person. The media covers him regularly." Diana's face went white. "Who is Marcus Chen?" James stared at her. "You really don't know. He's the man you were serving in Seat 1A. He's the founder and CEO of TechVision, one of the richest men in America, and you treated him like he didn't belong in first class." Diana felt like she might faint. "No, that's not possible. He was wearing a hoodie. He looked so ordinary." James shook his head. "Diana, that's exactly the problem. You judged him by his appearance, by his clothes, by the color of his skin. And you were completely wrong." The plane stopped at the gate. The seatbelt sign turned off. Passengers stood up. They began moving toward the exit. Marcus gathered his backpack. He moved calmly toward the door. Sarah Kim walked behind him. Patricia Walsh followed. Other passengers watched him with new eyes. Eyes of recognition. Eyes of respect. James stood at the door, thanking passengers as they left. When Marcus reached him, James spoke quietly. "Mr. Chen, I cannot apologize enough for what you experienced today. This will be fully investigated and there will be consequences." Marcus paused. He looked at James. "Make sure those consequences lead to real change. Training, education, system improvements. That's what matters, not just punishing one person." James nodded. "I'll make sure your message is heard, sir. Thank you for your grace." Marcus walked off the plane. Immediately, camera flashes went off. Reporters called out questions. Security personnel moved to guide him through the crowd. Mr. Chen, can you comment on the discrimination you faced on the flight? Mr. Chen, will you be pressing charges against the airline? Mr. Chen, what message do you have for other people who face discrimination? Marcus stopped. He turned to face the cameras. He took a breath and spoke calmly. I'm not ready to make a full statement yet, but I will say this. What happened today happens to people every day, rich or poor, famous or unknown. We need to do better. All of us. That's all I'll say for now. He walked away, surrounded by his security team. The reporters continued shouting questions, but Marcus did not respond. He had said what he needed to say. Sarah and Patricia walked off the plane together. They saw the media chaos. They looked at each other. This is going to be everywhere, Sarah said. Good, Patricia said firmly. It should be. People need to see what still happens, what we still allow to happen. They exchanged contact information. They had become witnesses to something important, something that needed to be documented and remembered. Back on the plane, Diana waited. All the passengers had left. Now it was just her, James, and the other crew members. They all knew. They all looked at her differently now, with disappointment, with disbelief. Come with me, James said. Diana followed him off the plane. They took a back route, avoiding the cameras. They walked through airport corridors until they reached a door marked Airline Operations. Inside, 3 people waited. 2 managers from the airline's Human Resources Department, and 1 lawyer. They all looked serious. Diana Patterson? One of the managers asked. Yes, Diana said quietly. Please sit down. We need to discuss the events of today's flight. Diana sat. The managers showed her the reports. James's detailed account, Patricia Walsh's email, Sarah Kim's video evidence, other passengers' complaints, the social media posts that were spreading like wildfire. Ms. Patterson, can you explain your actions? The manager asked. Diana tried. She tried to explain her thinking, her concerns, her procedures, but every word sounded hollow. Every excuse fell flat, because there was no good explanation for what she had done. Did you treat Mr. Chen differently than other passengers? The manager asked directly. Diana wanted to say no, but she could not lie, not with all the evidence sitting right there. I may have made some mistakes in judgment. Ms. Patterson, this wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern of discriminatory behavior throughout the entire flight. Multiple witnesses have confirmed this. We have video evidence. This is clear and unambiguous discrimination. Diana's eyes filled with tears again. I didn't mean to. I never intended. Intent doesn't matter, the lawyer said. Impact matters. And the impact of your actions was clear discrimination against a passenger based on his appearance and race. The manager pulled out a document. Ms. Patterson, effective immediately, you are suspended from duty pending a full investigation. You will not be allowed to work any flights. You will not be allowed to wear your uniform. You will not represent this airline in any capacity. Diana felt her world crumbling. How long will the suspension last? The investigation will take at least 2 weeks, possibly longer. During that time, you will be paid. But based on the evidence we've seen, I want to be clear with you. Termination is very likely. The words hit Diana like a punch. Termination. Fired. After 15 years with the airline. After thousands of flights. After building her entire career. All gone. You may want to consult with a lawyer, the airline's lawyer said. You may also want to consider making a public statement taking responsibility for your actions. It might help. But that's up to you. Diana nodded numbly. She signed the suspension papers. She handed over her employee badge. She walked out of the office in a daze. Outside the airport, she pulled out her phone. The news was everywhere. Every major news outlet. Every social media platform. The story had gone completely viral. Flight attendant discriminates against billionaire, CEO Marcus Chen tech icon. Marcus Chen faces racism at 30,000 feet. Video shows clear discrimination against black passenger in first class. The headlines kept coming. The comments were brutal. People were calling for her to be fired. Some people were even posting her name and photo. She was being publicly shamed, destroyed, canceled. Diana sat in her car in the airport parking lot. She cried. Not tears of remorse yet, still tears of self-pity and anger. She felt like the victim. She felt attacked. She felt misunderstood. But slowly, very slowly, reality began to sink in. She thought about Marcus Chen's face, his calm patience, his quiet dignity. Even when she had treated him poorly, even when she had been so wrong about him, she thought about her own behavior. The plastic cup, the paper napkins, the cold voice, the assumptions, the judgment. All of it based on nothing but appearance and skin color. Diana finally began to understand. Not fully, not completely. But the first crack appeared in her denial. She had been wrong. She had discriminated. She had hurt someone. And it did not matter that she had not meant to. She had done it anyway. Across the city, Marcus arrived at his hotel. He went to his room and sat down. He pulled out his laptop. He needed to prepare for his keynote speech tomorrow. But his mind was elsewhere. He thought about Diana. He did not feel angry at her. He felt sad. Sad that people still carried these biases. Sad that situations like this kept happening. Sad that even in 2024, a black man in a hoodie was assumed to not belong. But Marcus also felt determined. He would use this experience. He would talk about it in his speech. He would turn this painful moment into a teaching moment. He would advocate for change. His phone rang. It was his assistant. Marcus, the press wants a statement. The airline has issued an apology. They want to know if you'll accept it. They want to know if you'll pursue legal action. Marcus thought for a moment. Tell them I'll make a full statement at my keynote tomorrow. Tell them my goal is not punishment. My goal is change, real, lasting change. And tell the airline that I want to work with them on improving their training and policies. Not just for me, for everyone. His assistant took notes. Understood. I'll draft something. Marcus, are you okay? Really? Marcus smiled sadly. I'm tired, but I'm okay. This is not new. It's just more visible this time. And maybe that visibility will help. He hung up. He looked at his laptop screen. His keynote presentation was open. The title read, Innovation, Inclusion, and the Future of Tech. Marcus started typing. He added a new section, a personal story. Today's story. He would share it with thousands of people tomorrow. He would be vulnerable. He would be honest. He would show that success did not protect anyone from discrimination, but he would also show that experiences could be transformed into action. The airline held an emergency meeting that night. Executives sat around a conference table. The CEO was furious, not just about the bad publicity, but about the failure of their systems and training. How did this happen? The CEO asked. How did we let someone with these biases continue working for us? How did we fail to catch this before it became a national news story? The head of HR spoke up. Our training clearly isn't working. We need a complete overhaul. We need real consequences. We need cultural change. The CEO nodded. I want a plan on my desk by Monday. New training programs, new oversight, new accountability measures. And I want to reach out to Marcus Chen personally, not to avoid a lawsuit, but because we owe him a real apology and a real commitment to change. The team worked through the night, creating proposals, drafting policies, researching best practices. One incident had exposed a much bigger problem, and now they had to fix it. Diana went home that night. She sat alone in her apartment. She read the news stories about herself. She read the comments. Some were harsh, some were cruel, but some were thoughtful. Some talked about unconscious bias, about how people could discriminate without even realizing it, about how good intentions did not erase harmful actions. Diana started to cry again. But this time, the tears were different. These were tears of shame, of recognition, of beginning to understand what she had done. She pulled out a notebook. She started writing. Not a public statement yet. Just thoughts, questions. How did I become this person? When did I start judging people by their appearance? How many other times have I done this without even noticing? The questions hurt, but they were necessary. Change had to start somewhere. And for Diana, it was starting here, in this painful moment of recognition, in this humiliating public failure, in this forced confrontation with her own biases. The night wore on. The story continued to spread. People discussed it, debated it, shared their own stories of discrimination. The incident on Flight 1847 had become more than just one flight attendant's mistake. It had become a national conversation, a moment of reckoning, a call for change. And tomorrow, Marcus Chen would step onto a stage in front of thousands of people. He would tell his story. He would share his vision. He would turn pain into purpose, and the world would be watching. The Los Angeles Convention Center was packed. 5,000 people filled the main hall. Tech entrepreneurs, investors, engineers, students, press. Everyone who was anyone in the tech world had come to hear Marcus Chen speak. The lights dimmed. A video played on the massive screens. Highlights from Marcus's career, his early struggles, his first success, his company's growth, the impact of his technology on millions of lives. The audience watched in awe. Then the video ended. A spotlight hit the stage. Marcus walked out. He wore the same hoodie from yesterday, the same jeans, the same sneakers. The audience noticed. Some smiled, some nodded. They understood. He was making a point. The crowd stood up. They applauded. The applause grew louder. It lasted for a full minute. Marcus stood there, humble and grateful. When the crowd finally sat down, he began to speak. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for that warm welcome. I stand before you today not just as a CEO, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a human being who experienced something yesterday that I want to share with you. Marcus told the story, every detail, the boarding, Diana's behavior, the plastic cup, the discrimination, the other passengers who spoke up, the resolution. He spoke clearly and calmly, without anger, but also without hiding the pain. The audience listened in silence. Cameras recorded everything. Live streams carried his words to millions watching online. This was not the keynote people expected, but it was the keynote they needed. Some people say I should be grateful that this happened to me and not someone else, Marcus continued. Because I have resources. I have a platform. I have protection. But that's exactly the problem. No one should need wealth or fame to be treated with dignity. Everyone deserves respect, period. The audience applauded. Marcus waited for them to settle. The flight attendant who discriminated against me is not a monster. She's a person with biases that most of us carry. Sometimes we know we have them, often we don't. But not knowing doesn't make them less harmful, and good intentions don't erase bad impacts. Marcus paused. He looked out at the crowd. So what do? We don't just punish one person. We create change, real change. We build better systems. We provide better training. We hold each other accountable. We speak up when we see injustice. We use our voices. We use our power. We make a difference. The crowd stood again. The applause was thunderous. But Marcus raised his hand. He was not finished. Today I'm announcing a $2 million initiative. Money that will fund anti-bias training programs across service industries, airlines, hotels, restaurants, retail. We're going to help companies build better cultures. We're going to train people to recognize their biases. We're going to create accountability. Because that's how we make real change. The applause grew even louder. People were on their feet. Some were crying. This was leadership. This was using pain to create purpose. This was turning a terrible experience into meaningful action. Marcus finished his keynote with his prepared remarks about technology and innovation. But everyone knew the real message had already been delivered. Change was possible. Change was necessary. And change started with each person choosing to do better. After the speech, reporters surrounded Marcus. He answered questions. He explained his vision. He emphasized that this was not about revenge. It was about progress. Across town, Diana watched the keynote on her laptop. She watched Marcus tell the story. She heard his words about her. She was not a monster. She was a person with biases. It was the most generous description she could have hoped for, and it hurt more than any insult could have, because Marcus was right. She was not a monster. She was worse. She was a normal person who had let prejudice guide her actions. She was someone who had discriminated without even fully realizing it. She was the problem that Marcus was trying to solve. Diana opened her laptop. She started writing. A real statement this time. Not excuses. Not justifications. Just truth. My name is Diana Patterson. I am the flight attendant who discriminated against Marcus Chen. I want to take full responsibility for my actions. I treated him differently because of his appearance and his race. I made assumptions that were wrong and harmful. I caused pain to someone who deserved respect. I am deeply sorry, she continued writing. I am not asking for forgiveness. I am not asking for my job back. I am not asking for sympathy. I am simply acknowledging what I did. And I am committing to do the hard work of examining my biases and changing my behavior. This will take time. It will take effort. It will be uncomfortable. But it is necessary. Diana posted the statement on social media. The response was mixed. Some people appreciated the honesty. Some said it was too little, too late. Some said she was only sorry because she got caught. All of those things might be true, but the statement was a start, not an end, not redemption, just a start. A week later, the airline made its announcement. Diana Patterson had been terminated. New training programs were being implemented for all staff. An advisory board was being created to oversee diversity and inclusion efforts, and Marcus Chen had agreed to consult with them on these initiatives. The airline also announced that they would be partnering with Marcus's anti-bias training initiative. They would be the first major airline to implement the new program. Other companies quickly followed. Hotels, restaurants, retail chains. Everyone wanted to be part of the solution. Sarah Kim and Patricia Walsh both participated in interviews about what they witnessed. They spoke about the importance of speaking up, about not being silent witnesses to injustice. Their stories inspired others. People began sharing their own experiences. The conversation grew. 3 months later, Diana sat in a small classroom. She was taking an intensive course on unconscious bias. She was learning about psychology, about how the brain forms shortcuts, about how society shapes our perceptions, about how prejudice works. It was painful. Every lesson felt like a mirror being held up to her failures. But she kept going. She did not do this to get her job back. She knew that ship had sailed. She did it because she needed to change. For herself. For the people she interacted with. For society. She started volunteering at a community center, teaching English to immigrants, helping people navigate systems, working alongside people from all backgrounds, actually seeing people as individuals, not as stereotypes, not as assumptions, as real human beings with complex stories. Diana would never work as a flight attendant again. Her reputation was destroyed. Job applications went unanswered. People recognized her name. The internet never forgot. But slowly, quietly, she was building a different life. A more aware life. A more humble life. 6 months after the incident, Marcus received a letter. It was from Diana. Not a public statement, just a private letter. She did not ask for anything. She just told him about her journey, about what she was learning, about how much work she still had to do. She ended the letter simply. Thank you for your grace. I did not deserve it. But it changed me. Marcus read the letter. He felt many emotions. He felt validation. He felt sadness. He felt hope. He wrote back. A short note. Keep doing the work. That's what matters. Not perfection. Just commitment to growth. Good luck on your journey. The story of Flight 1847 became famous. It was used in training programs, in diversity workshops, in college courses. It became a case study, an example, a teaching moment, not because of the discrimination itself, that happened too often, but because of what came after. The accountability, the consequences, the commitment to change. 1 year later, Marcus spoke at the same conference. He mentioned the incident briefly. I told you a story last year. A painful story. A story about discrimination at 30,000 feet. Today I can tell you that story has led to real change. Thousands of people have gone through new training programs. Companies have new policies. And most importantly, conversations are happening. Uncomfortable conversations. Necessary conversations. Conversations that lead to growth. The audience applauded, but Marcus continued. But the work is not done, it will never be done. Because bias is human. We all have it. The question is what we do about it. Do we deny it? Or do we face it? Do we hide from uncomfortable truths? Or do we lean into growth? The choice is ours. Every single day. After the speech, a young black woman approached Marcus. She was nervous. She worked in tech too. She told him her own stories of discrimination, of being doubted, of being questioned, of not being seen. Marcus listened. He shared his own experiences. He reminded her that she belonged, that her talent mattered, that people's biases were their problem, not hers. The woman left with tears in her eyes, but they were good tears. Tears of feeling seen, of feeling validated, of feeling less alone. That was what Marcus's story had done. It had made people feel less alone. It had shown that even successful people faced discrimination, and it had shown that change was possible. Diana continued her quiet work. She would never be famous. She would never be forgiven by everyone. She would carry the weight of her actions forever. But she was different now, more aware, more humble, more committed to treating every person with dignity. She thought about that flight often, about Marcus's calm face, about his patience, about his grace. She thought about the person she had been, and the person she was becoming. The journey was long, the work was hard, but it was necessary. The airline continued to improve. They became leaders in the industry. Their training programs became the model for others. Their commitment to equality became part of their identity. They hired more diverse staff. They promoted more people of color. They created pathways for advancement. They measured results. They held people accountable. Was it perfect? No. There were still problems, still incidents, still bias. But there was also progress. Real, measurable progress. And that mattered. Sarah Kim and Patricia Walsh stayed in touch. They became friends. They spoke at events together, sharing their story, encouraging people to speak up, to be active witnesses, to not stay silent when they saw injustice. Their message was simple but powerful. You have a voice. Use it. Marcus continued to build his company, to innovate, to create, but he also continued to speak about inclusion, about bias, about the need for change. He used his platform. He used his resources. He used his story, not for sympathy, but for impact. He thought about that flight sometimes, about Diana, about how one person's prejudice had sparked a movement, about how pain could become purpose, about how failure could lead to growth, about how even terrible experiences could create meaningful change. Years passed. The story faded from headlines, but its impact remained. In training rooms across the country, in conversations between coworkers, in moments when someone chose to speak up instead of staying silent, in decisions to question assumptions instead of accepting them, in commitments to see people as individuals instead of stereotypes. The incident on Flight 1847 became history, but the lessons lived on. Discrimination still existed. Bias still existed. But so did accountability. So did consequences. So did people committed to doing better. And that made all the difference. Marcus Chen kept flying. He kept traveling. He kept wearing his hoodies and jeans. Sometimes people recognized him. Sometimes they did not. But he was always treated with respect now. not because of who he was, but because the culture had changed, because people had learned, because systems had improved. Was it perfect? No. There were still bad days, still moments of prejudice, still work to be done. But there was also progress, and progress mattered. Progress meant hope. Progress meant change was possible. Progress meant the future could be better than the past. Diana Patterson lived a quiet life now. She worked at a nonprofit. She helped people. She learned every day. She would never be who she was before that flight. But she also was not who she had been on that flight. She was somewhere in between, broken but rebuilding, humbled but growing, ashamed but committed to change. She sometimes saw Marcus on the news. She watched his speeches. She read his interviews. She followed his work, not with envy, not with resentment, but with gratitude. He had given her grace when she deserved none. He had turned their encounter into something positive. He had used his pain to help others. She could not undo what she had done, but she could learn from his example. And so life went on. Marcus continued building his empire. Diana continued rebuilding herself. The airline continued improving its culture. Sarah and Patricia continued speaking up. And thousands of people continued learning, continuing growing, continuing trying to do better. Because that was the real lesson of Flight 1847. Not that discrimination happened. Everyone knew that. But that what happened after mattered. Accountability mattered. Consequences mattered. Change mattered. Growth mattered. Speaking up mattered. Doing the work mattered. One flight, one moment, one person's prejudice, one man's grace, and thousands of lives changed. Not perfectly, not completely, but meaningfully. And that was enough. That was progress. That was hope. That was the beginning of something better. The story of Marcus Chen and Diana Patterson became more than just a viral moment. It became a reminder, a lesson, a call to action. It reminded people that discrimination still existed, but it also showed them that change was possible, that grace could coexist with accountability, that pain could become purpose, that failures could lead to growth, and most importantly, it showed that everyone had a choice: to speak up or stay silent, to grow or stay stagnant, to perpetuate bias or challenge it, to be part of the problem or part of the solution. The choice was always there, every day, in every moment, in every interaction. Years later, on another flight, another passenger faced discrimination, but this time, people spoke up, immediately, without hesitation. They had learned. They had grown. They had been changed by stories like Marcus's. They refused to be silent witnesses. They refused to let it happen, and that was the legacy of Flight 1847. Not just one man's experience, not just one woman's fall, but a movement, a shift, a commitment, a better future built one choice at a time, one person at a time, one moment at a time. The work continued. The struggle continued. But so did the hope. So did the progress. So did the belief that people could change, that systems could improve, that tomorrow could be better than today. And that was everything. That was the real story. The story that continued long after the plane landed, long after the news cycle ended, long after the viral moment faded. The story of people choosing to be better. And that story would never end.